It's Monday, February 11th. Such parallel negotiations may be detrimental to our interests, as the French side may take advantage of the same by interpreting such discussions to their benefit and weakening the position taken by the Indian negotiating team. This has precisely happened in this case. This strong note of protest, written by officials of the Ministry of Defense, dated November 24, 2015, when the Rafale deal negotiations were underway and now accessed by the Hindu, has raised fresh questions over the role played by the Prime Minister's office in the contentious defense deal. Official documents published by the newspaper show the Defense Ministry protesting that the position taken by the Prime Minister's office was, quote, contradictory to the stand taken by the Ministry of Defense and the negotiating team. The file notation by then Defense Secretary G. Mohan Kumar reads, Raksha Mantri may please see, it is desirable that such discussions be avoided by the Prime Minister's office as it undermines our negotiating position seriously. As a glaring example of the parallel negotiations benefiting the French, the note points out that the French official in his letter had stated that taking into consideration the outcome of discussions between the diplomatic advisor to the French Defense Secretary and the Joint Secretary to the Prime Minister, no bank guarantee is provisioned in the supply protocol, and the letter of comfort provides sufficient assurances of the proper implementation of the supply protocol by the industrial suppliers. This, the note pointed out, was contrary to the position taken by the Ministry of Defense and the Indian negotiating team that the commercial offer should be preferably backed by the sovereign, which is government guarantee, or otherwise by bank guarantee. The government had in October 2018 submitted in the Supreme Court that a 7-member team headed by Air Marshal S.P.B. Sinha, the Deputy Chief of Air Staff, had conducted the negotiations. There was no mention of the role of the Prime Minister's office in the negotiations.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट को सरकार ने झूठ बोला है. It's clear. If Supreme Court had this paperwork, you think Supreme Court would have given the judgment that they gave? This was withheld from the Supreme Court, of course.
Subsequent to the publication of the Hindu report, news agency ANI published then Defence Minister Amol Palekar's reply to the protest note by ministry officials, which reads, It appears the Prime Minister's office and the French President's office are monitoring the progress on the issue, which was an outcome of the summit event. Para 5 appears to be an overreaction.
The PMO will certainly monitor the progress of activities, not just purchases under defense, but many other. If the Prime Minister's office pursues a matter saying what is the progress, how far is it happening, is it happening here, is it happening in France, are you all moving forward, that cannot be construed as an interference at all.
In a news analysis piece explaining why the attacks on the Hindus' Rafale story are, quote, shallow and self-implicating, the newspaper writes, the note written by Mr. Palekar does not absolve the Prime Minister's office of anything. By using the word appears twice, he is not vouching for the propriety of the Prime Minister's office's actions or contesting the Ministry of Defense officials' concerns regarding the PMO's parallel negotiations. That too, only a paragraph appears to be an overreaction. Mr. Palekar, therefore, by deduction, is broadly in agreement with the concerns. Now, what is Para 5? In Para 5, the official suggests that the Ministry of Defense ask the Prime Minister's office to lay off the negotiations, or the Ministry of Defense be relieved of that duty. This Mr. Palekar found to be overreaction. He did not note any concerns with paragraph 4, for instance, which said the discussions between the diplomatic advisor to the French Defense Minister and the Joint Secretary to the Prime Minister tantamount to parallel negotiation. So, Mr. Palekar agreed to that view perhaps? So what does he do? He wants the Defense Secretary to deal with the Prime Minister's office, which by implication is bailing himself out of the loop. In all this, far from absolving the Prime Minister's office, Mr. Palekar has implicated the PMO, says the Hindu. Meanwhile, the much-anticipated Comptroller and Auditor General report on Rafale will likely be submitted today.
However, on 13 November, another disastrous decision was apparently taken, namely all future exhibitions. Sorry?
So, this is not needed at this moment, I'm sorry.
What is
We
it?
have to, the function is about Prabhakar Barve, we just stick to that. I'm sorry.
Yes, I am relating to Prabhakar Barve only.
This is not, this is, I'm sorry, sir. You have to stop this.
Are you asking me not to speak? You have invited me to speak.
I've invited to speak of Barve. Prabhakar Barve, sir.
Invited to speak at the National Gallery of Modern Art, Mumbai, veteran actor and filmmaker Amol Palekar was repeatedly interrupted when he criticized the Culture Ministry for reportedly scrapping the advisory committees of the gallery's Mumbai and Bengaluru centres. He was forced to cut short his speech. Palekar then reminded the audience that writer Nair Sehgal was invited to speak at the Akhil Bharatiya Marathi Sahitya Sammelan, a literary meet in Yavatmal, but that invitation was withdrawn by the organizers, who said they wish to avoid any untoward incident in view of the controversy that has cropped up against her name.
Recently, I'll just remind, most of you may be knowing this incident. Nayantara Sehgal was invited to speak, and at last minute, that invitation was withdrawn because what she was going to speak was slightly critical of the situation around us. Are we creating the same situation here? You're asking me not to speak?
No.
I will not speak.
So this is about Prabhakar Barve. It's not
I
about
am
document.
speaking about Prabhakar Barve.
So we just stick to that. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying don't speak about something. I'm just saying let's stick and talk about Barve. That's all I'm saying.
If you give me 2 minutes.
We did raise all our concerns, and despite that, you should appreciate that this is the National Gallery of Modern Art, a government gallery, sir.
Yes.
So you would perhaps
and what I was not allowed to read out.
No, sir.
I was thanking the Ministry
sir.
of Culture for this magnanimity.
No, sir. I don't take this backhanded compliment at all. Thank you so much.
The Parliamentary Standing Committee on Information Technology that had summoned the CEO of Twitter and top officials is expected to meet today. An earlier summons by the committee to examine the issue of safeguarding citizens' rights on online news media platforms was declined by officials of the social networking platform, who explained their inability to respond due to the short notice. The chairman of the parliamentary panel, BJP MP Anurag Thakur, had tweeted to say that the committee takes very serious note of this and that appropriate action will be taken on the 11th of February. A right-wing group, Youth for Social Media Democracy, recently held protests claiming the microblogging site suspends or shadow bans accounts that appear sympathetic to the ruling BJP and the government, Hindustan Times reported. A group of Canadian diplomats are suing their government over its alleged failure to protect them from a mysterious illness they claim to have acquired while stationed in Cuba. The so far unexplained Havana syndrome, characterized by unexplained headaches, nosebleeds, sleep disturbance, and memory loss, has affected dozens of American and Canadian diplomats, reportedly after they heard strange, high-pitched noises while stationed in Cuba. Canadian diplomats and their families who heard the strange noises reportedly continue to suffer even after returning to home soil. Their $28 million Canadian dollar suit accuses the Canadian government of sending officials to Cuba despite knowing about similar attacks on American diplomats in 2016. While speculation that the sounds are sonic attacks leveled on diplomats by the Cuban government abound, a study suggesting the sounds were actually the mating cries of insects, possibly the Indies' short-tailed cricket, has also been presented. The exact source of the sound and its relation to the illness, however, is yet to be confirmed. And finally, here's something you could vote on. Who does it better, Messi or Mo?
Fancy yourself at this, eh? Right, well, let's see another one. Finish! That is quality. That's it.
Love your morning fix? Help support our journalism. Subscribe to Scroll Plus using the link in the description.